now understand what a lead is, now it's like, okay, well, how do I get engaged leads? How do I get people to show interest in the stuff I sell? Well, that's what we're gonna cover right now. So there's 9 steps. I told you it's gonna get really tactical. The beginning was just to give you a little bit of whet the appetite, get you excited. The rest of this is gonna be like the shit you do to get people to wanna buy your stuff. All right, so 9 steps. How I figured this out, why lead magnets are important. There's a little spoiler for you. What and who, how to deliver, how to solve it, name it, make it easy, make it good, make the next steps. All right, let's rock and roll. So here's how I figured this out. So I was trying to get leads for a webinar because I was told by a mentor, like, hey, you can make a webinar to get gym owners. Okay, well, I'll do that. So I spent all this time trying to make this webinar and spent money advertising it after like 8 weeks of trying to make this work. And this other guy in the group started stuff. And he started making money on this webinar. I was like, it's I'm not gonna do it. And so I was actually like really excited. And
down by $20 billion, which for someone like me, like, this is, like, I don't come from this world. This is, I'm a tourist here. That's a lot of fun.
So $100 billion number. So that's 10 figures in billions. 12 figure company. There you go. Just the only thing that rivals the business success that he has is the ability that he brings to it. He was willing to hop on the phone for this and turn it off. And so I know my audience loved it also. And just kind of hear the perspective of entrepreneurship. You have such an interesting story that I think will to my audience from people who are just trying to figure out what to do to make money all the way through, right now the 20% is winning on so we definitely have the gamut from an entrepreneurship perspective, kind of beginning, middle, and end. And yeah, so thank you so much for taking time to join us. It's great to be here.
Very similar to information shopping, making it more accessible. I think that is this idea that business was out of touch with most people financially, from a perspective, knowledge, and insight experience. I think those days are long. We're going through a real renaissance right now. I think people like you and leading the way on that.
I appreciate it. I mean, everything that we do is for the real cause. It's to just try and break down as many barriers where people are. There are things that some of them are between ears, and so Shopify is taking a lot of that between hands and keyboard out of the way, where you actually get which is again something that 30 years ago just wasn't really a thing. And now everyone can do it. So I'm gonna kind of break this out into three kind of sections mostly. So first kind of chunk, I want to talk about the back end that'll a lot of people zero to hero. Like what got you here and all the things that second chunk is hero to superhero. Right, like those are and then at the very end, we go kind of like final nuggets and wrapping it up of like forward and backwards. What are kind of like principles and truths that you would try and pass on to the people who are listening? Cool?
Love it. Let's do it.
All right, that's our roadmap. So I know a little bit about this story, but my audience does. So you have this really unique thing of being employee and customer one. Can you walk us through like just the beginning of Shopify, like even the decision to jump into Shopify, what the business cycle associated with that, what was like prior to that, and then like what were the factors that got you into that? Step one, 'cause I think that's where a lot of people are right now.
Yeah. So I was born in Montreal, born in Canada. I moved to South Florida with my parents and sisters. I was always entrepreneurial. My parents did not have a lot of money, but my father, to his credit, my dad's an immigrant. He came to Canada from Hungary, revolution. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors, and we were poor kids. And although my dad never had much money to give me, because I always had these little silly business ideas when I was a kid, what my dad did for me was very valuable. Was even like when I was like 10 years old, every silly business idea that I had, he would validate it by actually making me these business cards that would say the name of the business and my name on it. And I'm now a dad. I have two daughters, Bailey and Zoe, 5 and 7. And now that I think about parenting and stuff, I think a lot more about that story, those stories of my father with his business cards, because at the time it didn't seem that profound. And in hindsight now, as a father myself, I realize these small things that we do for our kids have this massive impact. So even though these businesses were all very silly, trading cards and lemonade stands, eventually a DJ business when I was 13 years old, I was always entrepreneurial. And partially it was because I thought entrepreneurship was this fun activity. Like I wasn't really into sports, playing them. I was really into video games. So I got into like this idea of like selling something, and that was always fun. Moved to South Florida, and finished high school there, and moved back to Canada when I was 21. To university, where I live now. I went to McGill because it was cheap. My parents didn't have much money, and so because I was born in Canada, I kind of got this like in-state tuition. unfortunately, very quickly, once I moved to Montreal, to McGill, my dad got in some trouble, and our family lost everything. And once again, I sort of, pulled out this tool that I'd been tinkering with throughout my life called entrepreneurship to make some money. I started a t-shirt business when I was at McGill, made t-shirts for a bunch of universities across Canada, like the promotional t-shirts you got the first day of school, frosh or orientation, all that stuff. And I loved it. It was great. I wasn't necessarily passionate about t-shirts, but I love this sort of idea of being able to support myself and help my family. It was really...
Can I hit on real quick?
Yeah, please, go ahead. Sure. Absolutely. Jump in any way you want.
Yeah, the point that Harley just made, I just want to underline, which is that the first business he had, I don't think that you thought this was going to be the business I will have for the rest of my life. This is my dream. This is my vision. You were trying to make money, right? And I think a lot of people who are aspiring are trying to find this like perfect puzzle piece that's going to fit all of these things. It's going to be my passion. It's going to be fulfilling. It can be the next Canada. When a lot of times I think it's like a fallacy because the first business just gives you a little bit of light to show you what you have to take. And so I just want to just take the fun and go for it. We're like, find the perfect thing. Promo shirts for freshmen and sophomores.
It ain't glamorous.
Hey, right?
It's not glamorous. But in fact, the only unfair advantage I had was that I was selling t-shirts to a customer who I also was part of the program. I was selling t-shirts to the student council treasurer of the university. So they gave it to my students. I myself was a student. And so the pitch that I made was that one I had over because it was just me. I was the CEO and the janitor. I was printing t-shirts myself. So one, I'm going to be cheaper. Two, I made a pair of lots of them. I really need this to work. Three, I'm going to make t-shirts for people like me. And so I kind of know what your students want because I myself am one of your students. But just to go a step back, because I think you said was super interesting. So I sort of skipped over this, but when I was 13 years old, the business that really started me in entrepreneurship, a real business was, again, I was 13, so I wouldn't put too much credence on the fact that it was a real business, but it was a real thing. I wanted to be a DJ. I'm Jewish. I went to a lot of bar mitzvahs when I was 13 years old, and I thought the DJs were the coolest people in the world. They were sort of magicians in my mind. They would take a group of people that were sitting down eating some rubber chicken dinner in some hotel ballroom, and like 3 minutes later, using their voice and using lighting and music, there'd be a conga line. I just thought they were like magicians. I called around a bunch of DJ companies to ask them if they would hire me. And of course they said no, because I was 13, had no experience and didn't know how to DJ. But because I had this sort of, silly confidence that these business cards had provided for me, I had this idea to start my own DJ company and hire myself. So that was sort of when this idea of entrepreneurship as a tool to solve problems was sort of cemented in my very, immature young brain. And then when I needed to make money again at 17 as an undergrad in college, I didn't even think about, I should go get a job somewhere. Immediately my thought was, all right, I got to start a business to make some money. So I began to form this, what is now effectively I think it's Shopify's mission. It's also my personal mission, which is that entrepreneurship is this incredibly powerful tool because it's democratic and it allows anyone and anybody around to start something with very little. It doesn't matter who you are, what your last name is, and who your parents are, my parents were nobodies. It matters how much value you have. So I ran this t-shirt business all throughout college and developed a really good set of mentors along the way, people that I sort of met, and some people were lawyers and others were random entrepreneurs, and Bill Charney from American Apparel, now sort of, I guess, disgraced, but at the time he was a very big deal starting American Apparel. He was another Jewish entrepreneur from Montreal, and I met these people along the way. And one of those mentors convinced me when I finished college to go to law school, not to become a lawyer, but rather to become a better entrepreneur, almost like finishing school for entrepreneurship. And I was incredibly impressionable and funny when I was finishing college. Again, I had a little bit of money for t-shirts, but not much. And he said, look, I'm going to teach law next year at the University of Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. Why don't you come to Ottawa, go to law school here. I'll be in town. I can sort of help you navigate the city. And you'll go to law school not with the mandate to get called to the bar or ever litigate or practice law, but rather as a way to accumulate more skills and be very valuable as you think about scaling a business longer term. And so I was 2005, moved to Ottawa, no friends, no family there, and by this point, entrepreneurship was a part of my identity. And so, like I always did when I moved to a new place, I asked where the entrepreneurs hung out. And very, very fortunately, luckily, I was working at a coffee shop. And I was told that there was a group of entrepreneurs who hung out at this coffee shop every Friday evening. And they called themselves the Young Entrepreneurs Club 1C. And so I showed up there every Friday meeting these young entrepreneurs. And one of those entrepreneurs was this brilliant programmer who had just moved to Canada about a year ago from Germany. And he moved to Canada to go
As all people move, you know that reason, right?
very good reading. And love is always my and Toby had moved to Canada and didn't have papers. And so he was told that he was going to get a business being in Canada where he was told loves snowboarding. He decided to build a snowboard shop. In 2005, there were two ways to sell a product on the internet. The first way was to sell through a marketplace. At the time, like eBay was really the most prominent one. Amazon, I don't think at the time allowed third-party sellers to sell the first-party marketplace. So you had eBay, you had a bunch of these sort of very niche marketplaces. eBay, so you could sell on a marketplace, or you would pay a company like IBM, WebSphere, or SAP. All these big enterprise companies had some sort of e-commerce functionality, very large enterprise platforms, and that would be like a couple $1 million. And Toby did not like the idea of renting customers from a marketplace, and he did not like the idea of really having $1 million to spend on enterprise software, so that was impossible. So we wrote this piece of software using Ruby on Rails, where he was a sort of core developer of Ruby on Rails in the early days with DHH and a bunch of really interesting people. And he wrote this piece of software to sell his snowboards. And that's run through where I met him. He was like just selling these snowboards, and it was a really neat little business. He was making real money. And around that, and again, I was in law school now, so I'd ask him if I could use the software to sell my own products, which in my case would be t-shirts. And by that point, he had already sort of figured out that the snowboard business was a good idea, but the software that he had written to sell these snowboards was a great idea. And shortly thereafter, I ended up building a store on Shopify. This is 2006 at the time, and I became one of the first people to use what would become, at the time it was called David Pixel, and it was called Shopify originally. And I would be one of the first people to use the software. And I built this, I ran this t-shirt business, this direct-to-consumer licensed t-shirt business, all throughout law school. And that was sort of my first entry into Shopify, meeting Toby. And then when I finished grad school, I called Toby and said, look, like, I love entrepreneurship. It's everything. I think it's the greatest thing for me. It's my passion, my hobby. I want to increase the surface area for more people. And honestly, what I experienced building a beautiful, scalable store sitting in my tax law class on Shopify, I think more people should experience that. And I joined him about a year later, in 2009 or so. And I was like the first non-engineer to join the company. And it's one of the greatest. I mean, I really found it. But that's a long answer to your question of how I got started.
No, this is perfect, because this is a great pause point. So I was writing down some notes to the audience, and then I want to flip to the like, okay, you're now in Shopify, and you're in the because of course I'm sure going from that to your 100 million, probably just straight line, very smooth sailing, never any issues. And I'm sure everyone will be glad to hear that very short story, but we'll get to that one. But just for everyone who's listening, number one, the first business that really started was just for fun. And it wasn't just some magical thing that was going to be perfect. He did what he had to do, and he learned a ton of skills that really valuable. Second thing is that, and I want to emphasize this, is people have a lot of times like that, I don't know what to sell, what business should I start? And I think the easiest one to use is just sell your own product. So like almost every business I've had, well, every really good business I've had has come from that, which is like I mean, even the furthest one we've now had, a family office, and I wish I had this available to me when I was scaling up our companies, like somebody who's been there for multiple times and like had invested interest, etc. But scratching your own itch. Also, I want to highlight, some people kind of get segmented in one thing or the other. Like you did a physical products business, but really you're done a DJ thing, even though it was not, you made money. So you made a profit, and so like in my mind, like self-employed, whatever, like it was a service business. So you had a service business, and you also had some product that's super flexible in terms of how you're willing to
was agnostic. I was agnostic to what I was selling. And to your point, I think one of the easiest ways to figure out what to sell, you said scratch your niche. Another way to do it is simply just to tell a bunch of people that you think you're starting a business and just leave it out in the ether. The reason that I started selling t-shirts universities was as I told people that my dad wasn't around anymore, mom had no money, I needed to make some money, and he started a business. The more people I spoke to about that, a lot of the ideas that I got from them, but more and more people started telling me, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? Most of the things that I mentioned were not great ideas. But then someone randomly, his name is Jamie, once told me, I remember this perfectly clear. He said, hey, just so you know, Nikhil spends $25,000 a semester on t-shirts. It turned out he was wrong. These universities spent $250,000.
Yeah, I'm saying it has to be way higher than that, right?
Because I was putting out there this thing that I was looking to start a business, a bunch of people sort of became almost like my idea generation machine. And so this whole idea that there's a lot out there about don't tell people your goals and keep things to yourself, I call bullshit. I think do things and tell people is super important, even at the early stages of starting these things.
Well, my second book, $100 Million Leads, advertising is the process of making known. And so if no one knows about your stuff, no one can buy it. They must first know about it in order to buy it. And so if you just think about it from a first principles perspective, ain't no customers if they don't know. So first way to do that. So two things that I also want to highlight. So you talked about two different types of people that you surround yourself with. One was mentors. So just for everyone in my audience, we're talking people ahead, right? And the other thing was the community of peers, right? Here at the coffee shop where you met Toby, who ultimately, got you into this thing again by chance. But both of those things increase your luck surface area, the amount of different potential opportunities for exposing opportunity. Well, yeah. And so I just want to highlight that because a lot of people feel like entrepreneurship is lonely, and it can be, but to a degree it is a choice, right? And if you can't physically move environments, you can do it online now. And that wasn't available back then, but now we've got online communities, we've got school, we've got all these things where people can connect. And when I say school, SKOL.com, school, people can actually connect and meet one another. All right. Now, the last one is resourcefulness. And so this kind of ties well into kind of the next chapter of this journey, which is that you did all this stuff, Toby wrote code so that he could sell his snowboards, right? There's this whole everything. Of course, our whole mission is to make things easier, make things more accessible to people. But on some level, it's the fact that it becomes difficult is what makes the goal worthwhile, right? And if everyone could do it, then everyone would do it, and then it would no longer be worthy, right? Everyone can tie their shoes, everyone can get dressed, and so no one's like, congratulations. There's this whole, I think Chris Rock's skit where he's like, what do you want, a cookie? He's like, man, I ain't never been to prison. He's like, you ain't supposed to go to jail, right? And he goes this whole thing. And so right now, the fact that it's difficult is just another barrier that somebody might have to compete with will have to go over. And so it gives yourself a little stripe that you can show yourself about who you really are. All right.
Also, remember this. If you kind of think about if you kind of go back 200 years, when you think about starting a business, the one thing that, besides capital to get started and knowledge and understanding and technology to help you do it, forget all that stuff for a second. One of the big risks of starting a business historically was that the cost of failure could affect your life in a very adverse way. Meaning, when my grandfather came to North America from Eastern Europe, he started an egg business. He had a little egg stall at a local farmer's market, which actually still stands today. My uncle currently runs it. But he had to take a loan out on his home in order to afford the fee and the cost of actually renting this particular stall. If this did not work, the result of that would be no food on the table, no roof over their head. And that is effectively how businesses were built, so that people with more capital were able to take more risks. People that had more capital were able to invest more. People that had more capital were able to be able to mitigate the cost of failure. Well, one thing that has changed dramatically, and I would say today, literally right now, Alex, you and I are talking about this, the cost of failure of starting a business today is by far the lowest it's ever been. Whether you use a product like Shopify or use whatever you decide to do, the cost of failure is effectively $39. If it works, you scale it. Literally 3 feet from me, I have it was a gift from Ben Francis, who's the founder of Gymshark. And it's a Christmas gift he gave, a holiday gift he gave me. It's the original screen print from the original Gymshark the first t-shirt he made. Ben's been a big part of my life, and I've been, I think, a big part of his life. And so his gift was the original screen that created the first t-shirt for Gymshark. When Ben started, it was 2012, out of his dorm room. If it would have failed, would have gone back to class. I mean, he was literally also delivering pizzas, I think for Pizza Hut at the time, if I get that right, or some pizza company. But if it worked, he would go on to build a multi-billion-dollar company called Gymshark. So think about that. The upside, and that was 2012, that was 12 years ago. The upside today of starting a business is effectively infinite growth if you do it well and you're smart and you're adding great value. The downside is a couple less cups of coffee or a couple less Starbucks for that week. That is remarkable.
And I think that, if there's anything that, if there's one underlying point here, it's it's risk-adjusted return, right? Is that everyone here now can get endless shots on goal. Right now, because of how accessible entrepreneurship is, you basically just keep taking lottery tickets. And if you lose, then you just buy another scratch off, right? And you try it again. And so you still have the upside, except the thing is it's not rigged for you to lose. Like, there actually is a lot of people who want you to win, and there's an entire economy around you.
Well, not just that. Right now, what that's created is nearly a quarter, 25% of U.S. consumers in 2024 are considering starting a business. That's the highest I believe it's ever been. Number two is, since 2021, there's been 15.5 million new business applications in the U.S., an 85% increase from 2004 to 2021. The White House put out a bunch of stats on this recently. I mean, that is the reason that is happening is not just because technology is getting better and not just because of great podcasts and content like you're putting out there. It's because people are realizing that entrepreneurship may be the vehicle for them to actually find their life's work, make their life better, create independence, do the thing that they love most. This is a pretty exciting time for entrepreneurship. And I think the cost of failure thing is a big part of it.
So now you're employee number one.